No, it's a pretty informal, unscripted interview format. I didn't send you questions ahead of time. I mean, I think this is exactly the essence of the type of content I want to get at is, yes, you work for Aventon. Yes, we both fucking love e-bikes. But it also has huge tie-ins to mobility choices, where you decide to reside, where you can afford to reside, what your lifestyle looks like over the course of your life. If you've got twin, when children arrive, what didn't work for you with the living situation before. So this is all
Yeah, we can totally dive into it. But yeah, it was just like, it's a big transition. I mean, it was the girls, once we knew that we were having twins, it was like, that's what it was like. All right, that's when the first decisions were coming in of like, all right, we really have to put ourselves second now, and always just think of them first. Because at that point, my wife and I had been around, or had been together. We've been married for 3 years, and when we got pregnant, we were married a little over 3 years, and then but we'd been together for like almost a decade before. So, but case in point, we were able to spend a lot of time just ourselves, that dink lifestyle, just like living on a whim, and just like waking up and being like no plans for the day, and being like, what do you want to do today? Like, I don't know, let's just go ride bikes or something, or just like really just, you don't realize how much time you have. But that said, that it just changed the game for us, and we just had to really make some pivotal decisions. It Vegas was on the table just because her family was out here, and while I scoffed at first at like the idea that like, oh, why would I live in Vegas? Ugh. But as factors changed and became very real, it became a lot more, just a lot more viable and a realistic option considering everything. Because luckily my work allowed me to make the move as well, and technically I'm a little closer since they're based out of Los Angeles, so it's the arrangement has worked out pretty seamlessly. So I'm really lucky in that way. But just tying it back to just like cycling, and just from that point of view, because it has been like a paradigm shift, because you really, until you leave the Bay Area, do you very much realize the kind of like transportation mecca that it is. Alternative micro mobility as well, like in that sense, like the density, the amenities that are there, while not always the best, and I'm talking just from transit to infrastructure to location, like there's a lot of things that are like, it makes it a great spot, starting with the weather. I mean, the weather is impeccable. You can go and cycle year round, and it's very temperamental. I mean, the winter, yeah, it rains, and this is kind of the rainy season, but even then, like, just you can survive with a raincoat and like fenders and stuff. But coming out here, it's been a nice kind of reset button, because I took for granted a lot of what I had from transportation. There's not a lot of good like public transportation. There's a bus system, but it's really not what I find super reliable. But I've kind of just been slowly like putting feelers out there and seeing what similar cycling culture can I find out here that I did in the Bay Area, that I took for granted in the Bay Area. And I have been pleasantly surprised of how much I've been able to find. Starting with location here, I live, we had the opportunity to pick a place that was located along a very popular rail trail that's literally just behind the house. And it goes, basically, you can get pretty close to like the internal valley, but then it also goes out to like the Hoover Dam. So you can really just make endless routes of like 40, 50 miles just outside my door, which is really nice. There's mountain biking as well, and then with that, there's the community itself. I've already like made ties with the president of the Southern Nevada Bicycle Coalition and gotten to know her. She's also an LCI. a league certified instructor with the League of American Bicyclists. And I've actually already taught a couple classes as well, which has been really a turn of events. So there's slowly just kind of doing the same things that I was doing in the Bay Area and shifting now to this area has been really just amazing. To find the same people with the same values and stuff, and just like seeing what is to be built, because there just isn't a lot as many high density amount of people doing the same sort of thing, such as the Bay Area, where you get a lot of the concentration of what I would call bicycle champions is like significantly more in the Bay Area versus here. There are people that champion this stuff, but to a much lesser degree. But I'm, like I said, I'm slowly just finding my way and meeting people and realizing there's like their own version of bike party in the valley and stuff. And it's been fun. And the riding is a little dry, but I mean, right now the weather is fantastic. I'd say it's very like mid 70s. It can be a little breezy here and there. But what I'm still gearing up for is the transition into summer and like not being able to ride like during the day and stuff, like figuring out what it's going to be like night riding and stuff and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, but it's been good overall. It's been wonderful. It's been a good like change of pace for me personally, because the Bay Area was my home. It was born and bred there, and just been like that was just always like I thought I'd never leave, but never say never. It doesn't mean I won't ever be back. But that said, it's definitely still like a place that I like to visit, and just like a familiar place. It's still home for me, in a sense. But yeah, with the twins, you know, even thinking about like e-bikes and stuff, and just like getting how am I going to get around? I definitely try to pick this place we're at now in a place that is located next to a trail. We want it to a decent proximity to the rest of the family that we have here. So I think in a way, I have positioned ourselves to be like bike friendly, despite there being like I think the walkability score of this particular neighborhood is like very low because it's kind of like off grid and it's suburban. It's super suburban. But there's access that I can utilize on a bicycle that doesn't have me get onto a road either. So that was a big, a large, but a really good factor in choosing where we're at now, because I know like I want to get my family out, and having that trail is the best. It's really been amazing. But yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways.
I want to formally introduce you in some fashion because it helps to connect the dots of how we know each other, I think, which is
Totally.
we met through a mutual friend who, you know, I think trying to organize a larger group to go on a bike camping trip. And so we got connected through the bicycling network of the Bay Area. Yes. I was gonna launch into asking you about bike camping, I suppose, but taking a step back, I wanted to share a little bit about my experiences bike camping since we first met.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a really, even the process of planning a bike camping trip really reframes how you look at your community. I myself, where I reside in the Bay Area in San Mateo, south of San Francisco, north of San Jose, we're against the Santa Cruz Mountains. A lot of the land between the bay and the mountains is pretty developed, all pretty privatized, except for San Francisco Water District land. And so accessibility to campgrounds, legal or not, is quite hard. So just the process of me trying to go down the road of identifying a viable camping trip that I could go by myself or bring friends on was hard. Since we last spoke, I've done several camping trips by bike. One that's accessible via BART. You mentioned the amazing transit amenities of the Bay Area. that is allows someone who lives in a San Mateo, for example, to bike to a BART station and take BART with their bikes to a immense amount of places.
Yeah.
So one campground was in the East Bay in Briones Regional Park, requiring reservations in advance. But the other ones I've taken advantage of are hike bike campgrounds, which California has a number. I wanted to, formally introduce you though, Fed Miller. We got the conversation kicked off talking about your move from the Bay Area to the Las Vegas area, and well, what motivated the move? I think that helps a lot to square things.
The clear motivation was my family. I had two daughters, and that was like the pivotal moment in that, like, it changed everything for us. We had to really make some hard decisions and see like what was viable in terms of affordability as well. The Bay Area, while it has so much to offer, is just it's just expensive. It's just the nature of it. And um, we were looking at just the factors of like job and that sort of thing, and just like the support, the childcare, and that's where this was it was a very viable option, just from the affordability of the type of home that we were looking for, the affordability of that home, and the proximity of family. Those were like probably the two biggest factors that contributed to making the move. And everything else is pretty much been secondary and but fall into place, which is good. But it from like a cycling standpoint, it's just changed the scenery. There's still good riding out here. There's still good people. Some things are not as good as others, but that's okay. It's just something that it was really just more a decision of a family first. So
when you it sounds like you landed totally both feet firmly. And when you were housing shopping, I'm curious, you mentioned a poor walk score being, suburban style development where you're now situated. Scores are not everything though.
For sure. No, it's
I'm wondering if you can speak to like what, have you gotten to know your neighbors? What's kind of the on roads you've got to immediate community? Like do your in-laws, which it sounds like you moved to be close to, are they walking distance, biking distance, driving distance?
They're all three, biking and driving being the most viable. You can walk, but it's like a 7 to 8 mile walk. So
it's like a 2 hour, 3 hour walk.
Yeah, exactly. So you totally could, but it would take you a long time. The inroads of community around here, in our immediate community, so a lot of places around here tend to be like actually like gated communities. Not that they need to be gated, but like some of them just are. And with that, there's like an HOA and that sort of thing, which can be a turnoff for people. But I have actually found that it's been a positive experience. They not only maintain the grounds, like the neighborhood's very clean, but also like there's been the sense of community is like there are community gatherings, and there's a lot of families in the community itself, and like they do like trunk or treats and stuff during the summer. There's like movie nights and stuff like that, which is really nice. So everyone tends to keep to themselves, I will say, and like not like the most immediate neighbors haven't been the most neighborly, but that's okay. You do the every once in a while like glance when you're taking out the trash cans, like, hey, how's it going? That's it. And that's okay. I mean, it's just it's been busy, and those kind of relationships come with more time. That's especially when I see families with kids, which there are a lot of, people are just kind of like focusing on what they need to do. But as far as that, it's just more time that's coming to foster those relationships. As far as the bike ability to my in-laws, it's very straightforward. Like I had mentioned, there's a trail, not even like I can see it out my window, and that makes it all the best as far as it makes it very easy to get to the town that they're in, which is just over the hill. And there's just nice because the majority of the way you're not on busy streets, and their town is small, and like it's pretty quiet, so the traffic's very aside from like one kind of highway that's going through it is it's pretty quiet. So it's what I would consider pretty bike friendly. Um, so those combinations make that access really, really nice. And by bike, going more into town, it's actually everything's relatively close. You can ride the trail 3 miles straight and be next to a grocery store, a coffee shop, um, all the kind of the amenities for like a quick errand run type of thing, which is really nice. So it's like you said, the walkability score that like is given to you on a website, on a real estate website, is only just one thing. You really kind of have to see and put things, make a list of like what are your actual priorities and measure it that way, because that's in our eyes like this place is perfect in a lot of different ways. And well, yes, I prefer like to be able to walk a mile and be at a coffee shop or a restaurant or a grocery store. That's just something that is just a little different around here. The pockets and swaths of concentration of businesses versus like the housing is like definitely like islands, which are pretty much like strip malls and things like that around here. So a little different in terms of the density, but I can tell you that like when I do go to more highly densely populated areas, it's like a breath of fresh air to be like, oh, vibrance and culture and like walkability and like it's definitely I definitely nerd out on like the infrastructure and like appreciate it a lot more. So
Has that trail been a source of socializing? Like, have you, I have to imagine, there's only two directions you can go on a trail. So I
yeah,
have to imagine you've met people or gotten familiar with faces on that
yes.
trail and that you frequent it often and others frequent it often.
Yeah, totally. It definitely over time picked up like the same people that are walking and things like that. The girls themselves, when I'm walking them, they're like people are like, "Oh my God, twins!" Like no, even when they're just riding by, it's pretty funny. But I definitely pick up familiar faces. Haven't really stopped and chatted all that much with anyone, but definitely the same type of people riding on like Sundays and things like that. So, but otherwise, like I said, I think to actually like I'm the same person that runs the Bicycle Coalition also works for like the trail maintenance and like a group as well. So it in that sense, it's like people wear multiple hats as well out here. So I know people that help maintain the trail and that sort of thing. But as far as people like on the trail, just kind of casually the nod and keep walking or riding and like nod and things like that. That's it.
Do you mind if I steer this to your day job?
No, of course not. It's
With
relevant.
yeah, super relevant. For folks who don't know, Fed works as a designer with Aventon who make electric bikes. Did I get that right?
That's right. No, that's completely right.
Can
Yes,
you
I'm a
share a little bit about what it is you do with them?
yeah. So I am a designer. Specifically, I'm the senior graphic designer for the US team. And we are basically an e-bike company that we are vertically integrated. So we're Chinese and American. Chinese in that our CEO is from China, and we are vertically integrated in that we own our own factory. So that's a very big differentiator for us because it allows us to really control the quality that we're putting out and really just be able to be very fluid and pivotal in how the market's reacting to putting out new product fast, that sort of thing. And while we were kind of like in more of that category of back in 2020 during the bike boom of like just another e-bike brand that might have popped up, I think at this point we've been able to really push ourselves a little farther and differentiate ourselves from that smaller group and now kind of more in a medium space. But yeah, I primarily work on the marketing side, doing a lot of advertisements and touch points and things like that, websites, some product here and there. It really just varies depending on what is coming down the line. So, but yeah, I've been here for a little over 3 years, and it's been great. Definitely being able to double dip in the design world, and also working for a bike company has been truly a grateful experience, and just happy to be doing what I'm doing. So,
Well, I think what it is that you're working on is immensely valuable societally, knowing, 100 years of um, marketing and sales of the automobile, and the amount of annual marketing and ad budget that goes into selling cars domestically in the US.
mhm,
Um, I think the effort to sell the dream on alternative types of mobility, this ties into the How to Meet Your Neighbor podcast
mhm.
theme, because of the fact that you really cannot meet your neighbors while you're in a car,
That's
or
100% true.
or odds are it's not going to be a nice way to meet your neighbor. So
Yeah,
um, one of the areas that I'm interested in covering is just how to change how people think about their transportation choices. And that being said, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on, you know, the customer base and the state of marketing and sales of this new wave of mobility with electric bikes. I mean, electric bikes have probably existed for well over a decade. I mean, the key difference being the lithium ion battery. I mean, motorbikes
yeah,
predate electric bikes, like gas powered bikes. The
hmm,
key distinction just being motorized, and maybe also that they're with a battery, electric battery, rather than gas fuel. And then separately is the introduction of the pedal assistance sensor, and the idea that you could pedal your bicycle and then adjust a degree of assistance that your
yeah,
pedaling
hmm,
gives you, so that you don't have to go whole effort up that hill that you just described needing to, sounds like, ascend to get over to
yeah,
your in-laws. So
yeah.
what's the state of things in the marketing world for electric bikes? Obviously, the last 5 years have been really tumultuous. I mean,
Hmm,
on the one hand, folks really sought out outdoor experiences during
hmm,
coronavirus, with so many concerns about lockdowns and avoiding contagion of COVID.
hmm,
And then it's changed also. I mean, inflation for cars has been huge. So a lot of folks are looking to electric bikes for cheaper options. There's a lot of people who may not have ever ridden bikes before in the US, a lot who might not have touched a bike since they were 8 years old, when their parents might have briefly taught them how.
yeah.
So what's the range of events and customers that you all are reaching, and what's the
Well,
reaction?
so from a macro level, I'll just start with just like kind of like from like what I'm reading from like the industry in general, and that is there are a lot of people hurting, a lot of manufacturers to shops. It's across the board. There's definitely been a major slowdown, from the everyone wanted the boom in 2020 and the COVID boom of bikes to be everlasting, but it just there's a reason why shops and manufacturers are still have like 2023 year product, um is because people are just got their bikes, and it just people are now like holding on to their money, and understandably so. But that said, we are trying to, from what I'm trying to do, and what the company is trying to do is we're trudging forward and really trying to tailor to the recreation base, which is kind of the whole. It's kind of basically where the market is now. In the U.S., is bicycling is seen as recreation, in a lot of places, and it's, I think, a majority thinking about bike riding. It's more of a recreational sport, not necessarily transportation, in such places like in Europe and stuff. And I think that's where in lies the opportunity, that while the older generations are seeing it more as recreation and kind of like a getting back to square one and feeling young again. There's definitely this other side where like the transportation is very viable because gas is expensive, cars are expensive. Like you said, not just the gas in cars, but just the manufacturing of these products are getting more expensive. But cycling is still staying at a very viable place in terms of just feasibility to get around when you can, because not every place like is the Bay Area where it has like this like really great weather, or Southern California. But there are still points in the year that one can go out and take that ride to the grocery store instead of driving. So it's really just on a more micro level, like kind of what we're trying to do is bridge that gap to be introduce bicycling more as transportation while still tailoring to the recreation, because that's kind of just the bread and butter, and that the money is there for that. That's where a lot of it comes from, but nevertheless, the transportation side is something we still want to push and build up and educate and help out. Both for me within the company, but also personally. That's just something that like with teaching classes and stuff is what I'm trying to finish, or at least close that gap, close the cycle of getting someone from not riding or riding recreationally to considering to riding just transportation. But yeah, with us at the company, we're just again focusing on just pushing out more features that are make the rider experience easier, and just really close the gap between like the convenience of a vehicle, of a combustion vehicle or EV, and using a bicycle, because we just know that it makes a big difference in just where we're headed, where things are. And then going back to just kind of like the vertical integration and things like that, that really allows us not only control the quality, but bring a valuable product, or provide a great value product. So a lot of our bikes are priced very competitively, and like bicycles that are equally equipped to say our commuter models can be like a few hundred, maybe sometimes $1,000 more. And not to knock on those other companies, but like, we're just able to come in and really hit that mark and provide a great product, which I think is important, because not everyone has that income to really just afford a few $1,000 bicycle or a cargo bike or something. So
for sure. One aspect that I'm curious about specifically is with that reframing from folks who think about an electric bike purchase as a recreational expenditure to a transportation one. I'm sure y'all sell accessories for bikes, and an aspect of accessories that I think it's reasonable to expect that a huge amount of our audience right now, and Americans in general, aren't familiar with what a pannier is, for example, or the types of trailer hitches, or that they would ever use a trailer hitch on their bicycle. And then to top that off, something I've seen with electric bikes in the last few years is the passenger electric bike. I mean, there are kid hitches where you can tow your children in a trailer behind your bike, but I think we've all seen middle schoolers with a second middle school passenger sitting on the back of an e-bike, perhaps before. So it meets some needs that I think people might not understand about the accessories that are possible with electric bikes that also existed with non-electric bikes. But because of an electric bike's motorized abilities, you can transport a lot more than folks ever previously imagined with a bicycle. So can you speak a little bit to educating the market, the marketing strategy around communicating these product offerings, and the realities of using these accessories to make your e-bike more powerful as a piece of property than folks might wrap their heads around?
Yeah, totally. Looking at our on our product line, we have the Abound bicycle, and that is basically our cargo bike. And that bike is definitely elevated by the accessories you can buy with it. You can there's bundles that we basically sell with the bike, or that you can purchase, that will come based on a few different configurations, such as like an air runner, which would include like a front rack, and then like a basket kind of in the back that's like a big like tray essentially that you can put stuff and tie stuff to, or like a kid hauler would be like more of like ones with a railing system and a seat that go like a captain's chair that will strap to the rack on the back, while accompanying like the flat rack on the front as well. Those are very nice, and really just like they make the product come alive because it makes it just more functional. But you're right that like um, with a regular acoustic bike, the accessories are great and enabling as well. But it's just that hindrance of like, oh man, I gotta haul this like heavy bike now to wherever I'm going, and you can do it, but it obviously is going to take a lot more effort. And that electric motor definitely opens up that ability to, let's bring the cooler, let's bring the kid in the cooler, or just, I need to go to the hardware store to pick up some mulch and stuff like that, and some other equipment. Like I can just, rather than just have to deal with parking and stuff, I can just take the cargo bike and just fill the panniers and then whatever else on top. Um, definitely the accessories, definitely like we try to again go back to bundles and really uh, provide the bike in a basic way from the get go, so that the person has more opportunities to use it the way that they need to, and then from there customize it. I think with any bike, that once you get it, you to make it more yours, you just you'll add the different grips that you like, the saddle, maybe a different light, more reflective points, whatever have you, whatever makes it more comfortable and suited for your needs. Um, let's see, what other accessories. I think one caveat sometimes is like
Well,
understanding what accessory comes with what. Sometimes on our end, we face sometimes that things aren't sold completely together. So that's just something internally that we're trying to figure out, make sure that it's as complete as possible, as well as compatibility. That's another thing that is very important because right now we have our Bound kind of long tail carrier cargo bike, and then we have an SR, which is more, it's a short tail, so short tail SR. Um, and that is kind of what you're talking about, that it's one of those short tail that has the ability to have like one extra person kind of like sitting on the back, holding on to the driver. Um, and the cross compatibility, if you get one Abound and then be like, well, I want to get the SR, my friend has an SR, like I wonder if I could just use this same accessory that I have from this other bike, and making sure that that is seamless goes back to the quality that we want to put out as a manufacturer, that like things just kind of flow and be like, wow, like this is really thoughtful because you're able to move between these two products, thus propelling the seamlessness that we strive for in the experience. So hope that
could
kind of answers
you?
your question a little bit.
It does. It does. Could you speak to what might be the most popular accessories? Or, I mean, it's hard to distinguish here because
Yeah.
there are different bicycle designs themselves, like you're describing,
Hmm.
like a long tail bicycle where the frame of the bike extends out backwards, allowing you to seat, two
Yeah.
children or even an adult on the back.
Hmm.
Um, and then there are accessories, and I'm wondering what are maybe the most popular accessories, like where is there the most interest in extending the bicycle beyond its traditional conception as a leisure activity, where the only equipment you have is yourself and your bike
Hmm.
going for a athletic ride
Yeah.
or one
Yeah.
out in nature.
Yeah. So both of our current cargo bikes are like the motors in the back, and it's like an extension. It's not like a people carrier on the front or a bucket carrier on the front, anything like that. So all our accessories strap to the back, and I think from my perception, I don't actually have the sales numbers.
Sure,
I
sure.
have looked, but from what I've seen is really just like the captain's chairs or the chairs that the pads that sit enable a person to sit comfortably on the back, as well as railings, so you can have like a car seat or the child seat, and then you have like these rails that go around them, so they have something to grab on, as well as the basket. Like I think those are the two. Those are like the products that I think are the most popular. Followed by like there's like these large panniers that can go on the sides as well, um, and those are kind of just the ones that I think that are like the easiest to use initially. The more complex ones like the front rack I think can kind of is if it's available. Sometimes it's out of stock, but or most of the time it's out of stock. I think because of the popularity. I'm not sure, but that can sometimes throw someone off. If you're not used to carrying something on the front, it doesn't move with the bike. You know, it's stationary with because it's a part of um, the top tube or the head tube, and you know when you're moving, you know you might be going left, but then like whatever's on there stays straight, so that can throw some people off. But if people are comfortable with it, that accessory is definitely, at least in my experience, been like very worthwhile to be able to strap something to the front or just throw something in the front. Baskets are amazing. Um, but yeah, I mean, really just involves on what you're doing. Either you're carrying children or carrying cargo, but I think most of these bikes are being used as people movers, child carriers and things. So hope that
Coming,
answers your question there.
it does. It does. Coming back to where you're residing now. Do you have any neighbors who are in on the e-bike ownership train? Like having that trail amenity right next to you, I have to
Yeah,
imagine it makes it really attractive. So
I see people on e-bikes on the trail, but of my own neighborhood, I still have not seen anyone like I've seen people like my neighbor does ride his bike, but it's not an e-bike. That I mean, riding an e-bike or not, like it doesn't matter to me as long as they're riding bikes. But they're kind of the only people that I've seen like actively riding. So like very, very few coming out of my neighborhood, but there's definitely a lot of e-bikes. Of different of all shapes and sizes, people riding and stuff, and um, it's been nice to see, especially like with just the kind of riding out here. Like we live at the top of a pass, so everything I forget that no matter which direction I go and ride, I always have to come back up the hill to get to my house. But that said, like a lot of people just do ride e-bikes because it can be very windy out here. When it's windy, it's windy. Um, the headwinds can be really nasty and the crosswinds can be really nasty. So having that ability to like not work just as hard to get up a hill, even though it's like a pretty gentle grade, it can still just be that extra effort that you that just makes all the difference. That makes the ride is something that you enjoy to something that was like the difference between type 1 and type 2 fun, if that makes sense. If you're familiar with those terms. So type 1 fun is kind of more like happy and just kind of like casual. I'd say casual. And type 2 is really more like mountain biking and like hiking and backpacking, mountaineering, like those types of activities that you're involved. There is some sort of challenge to it, a physical challenge that you need to overcome. And it's not always fun all the time. You know, when you're climbing a hill, it can just be huffing and puffing. You're like, why am I doing this? And that's the kind of the differentiation between type 1, type 2. And that's kind of like where an e-bike can sometimes be, that enable, if you're just sitting there, you want to use the throttle, hang out, you know, you're cruising, that's fine. Like do it. But you can also, you know, not engage the throttle and just, even with assistance, like you can just sit there and just pedal and have your effort multiplied. But that said, you're still working. You might not be working as much as you would on a regular bike, an acoustic bike, but you're still working nonetheless. And yeah, so a lot of people on bikes out here, at least in this section, which is always really nice to see, and hopefully expand more and have more people ride when they can.
I gotta ask: is your wife on board the bicycling train, the active transportation train? Does she ever take your guys' e-bike out, and whether by
She
herself or with
hasn't.
passengers?
She hasn't necessarily gone out. She is a cyclist. She likes to ride and stuff like that. But she hasn't ridden really since we've left the Bay. Just with the girls and stuff. Um, it's just been like all hands on deck, and she's able to not have to work right now. And she her primary focus is the girls, so she's very 100% involved in that. And she goes on walks and things like that. We have like the strollers and stuff that enable her to get out and stuff. But nevertheless, I want to change that now that they're getting a little older. They can hold their heads up and stuff. Now it's in the territory of like, you know, do I get a cargo bike or do I just get a trailer that I can pull? And so it's I'm starting as a parent now. I'm starting to think about those ideas and is the e-bike now that I have more can she it's right now it's like suited for like my riding and you know she's a lot shorter than me so she can like it's she can probably ride that bike but it might be a little bit of a hassle for her so there's that it's not like a one size fits all in terms of that but she is on board and I want to get her out more so is a cargo bike going to do that I'm not sure yet but if I have to replace my e-bike for something that is more um, usable for the both of us, then so be it. If the girls can go out and have a good time. But yeah, that's hopefully we can get her out more for sure. That's definitely the goal. So get her back on the horse.
Totally. No, I think the barriers that exist for you or me riding a bike on the trail behind your guys' subdivision or neighborhood, our barriers are very different from your wife's.
Yeah.
Knowing that you guys just had kids very recently, I've heard that I'm not sure what the science is on this, but I think waiting till children are 6 months old and like you described, having neck strength is
Mm-hmm.
most important for whether it's safe to bring them as passengers. I don't know
Yeah.
about driving a car versus bicycling, but having that trail behind your home that's, car separated is great.
It makes like I said, man, it's definitely one of the major factors of just being here. Contributing factors. I was like, I know just from where I've lived that like if I have a trail, I know I'm going to use it. It's just been and I mean, I feel like I might be out of both of us, I would probably be the one that's going to be taking the girls out on a bike. Not that she couldn't do it, but it might be more in a setting that if I'm along with her, that we do it. Um, so, but that said, with the trail too, we can like practice and be like, hey, like, give her the confidence that she might need if she is lacking confidence to make sure that like, hey, like, why don't you take the girls on the bike today instead of driving to your grandparent or to your parents? So it's like that sort of thing, making those little decisions and when it's viable. Because again, like the factor that I'm still waiting on is the summer here and not being able to ride during the day for the sake of not burning to a crisp is going to be um, interesting because, like I said, this night riding it's either you're either up at 6 in the morning, or when it's like coolest, like it's the coolest 4 to 6 a.m. And then it's like after 6:37 is like the other like time where it's nice to go out because you're not sun's down, it's not in your face, so it's not as bad and um, while we're still surrounded by concrete here or asphalt, because we're like at the edge. I call it the edge of the grid because literally like the trail in the neighborhood ends and then there's like just mountains. Like it's pretty nice. But that said, there isn't like a lot of that residual heat radiating off the asphalt as much as it would be like elsewhere in the valley where it's like completely like um, engulfed in that. So that's nice. But yeah, um, just it's fun doing this, just changing the habits of all this when considering the environment that I'm in.
For sure. Yeah. Are many of your guys' neighbors similarly immigrants to the area? Are they remote working like you are? What's yeah,
I get that sense that there's a lot of both transplants and people working from home as well, just from the range of of plates that you see on cars. You see wide variety of Midwest states, and some of even from the South, and the conversations that you hear, because like there's a street behind the house, and like there's just the people walking towards the trail, and I hear a lot of people just having conversations, and it sounds like conversations that are like business oriented, assuming that they're probably also working from home. Um, so not that I'm eavesdropping, but it's just kind of like, oh, like it sounds like they're doing something. So yeah, it's not Nevada as a state, I think, it's the majority of people are transplants. And so it's just a natural thing, like, hey, where are you from? What brought you here? Kind of thing. Um, but yeah, it's at least over here, it's like that. But there's still also a lot of people that you notice that like they're gone before the sunrise, and like the people are moving at different times throughout the day, depending on what like their schedules are. So, and that said, like with the weird schedules, that hinders a lot of people to be able to ride a bike because it's not a regular 9 to 5. So in the distance that we are from kind of like more of the downtown area is definitely very far. So it's not something that's super viable for a lot of people. So at its core, this area is a car centered space. So, but yeah, it is what it is. That's one of the compromises. So.
I know you haven't been there long, but are you caught up on what local politics looks like? Whether there's any appetite or interest to change anything about how the community looks today, to make it better in whatever form that might look like?
I think there is, just from like the watching the construction that's happening, and in different areas, and also noticing the infrastructure that's already here. I think there are inroads being made now, to make things a little more friendly in terms of transportation and infrastructure. Like for example, we have a main thoroughfare, Boulder Highway, which is basically it's a 4-lane highway that has goes literally straight. You see it on like from the mountainside, and it's just like a straight line downtown. And it's a two, like almost like Highway 5, like two lane highways separated with like by like a good amount of area in the middle. And I believe it was a highway at some point, but now it's actually just like filled with like businesses and stuff like that, up until basically downtown. But they're actually building now a center bus lane, which is going to be very nice to see, because the buses itself, like I mentioned, my impression of the bus system here is that it really isn't all the best. And if that is a way to improve the frequency of the buses, which I think it will, is fantastic. And there's also a trail network that follows a decent part of Boulder Highway as well that you can ride. So there's that too. This side of town in Henderson, there seems to be just in general a lot more friendliness in terms of infrastructure. But that said, while the infrastructure is there, that doesn't mean that the driver sympathy is there. Very aggressive drivers. The streets are definitely a lot more nerve-wracking in certain areas. So definitely, it's like if I can find a trail and stick to a trail, I rather do that than just kind of like put myself out there. That said, though, like I do see people riding bikes on streets and using themselves as vehicles and doing that sort of thing, which is really nice. But it's still something that I just keep in the back of my head of like, and notice, and just like the driver's sympathy, and when either I'm driving or walking around, and it seems to be just generally a little lower than in other places. So it is what it is. Again, the compromises, but local politics wise, it seems like there's some inroads, but I haven't been given too deep to really like see if there's any more things going on, and what things are being voted for right now. So
Sure, of course. Yeah, it's hard to keep track of this stuff
yeah.
having young twins. Any opening here for your in-laws to e-bike to you? It sounds like
Oh yeah.
there's you
Yeah,
guys go to
absolutely.
them maybe, but have they ever expressed interest or curiosity about reaching you
So
guys on the
they do
trail?
have e-bikes. They have e-bikes themselves, and I think just by like me being out there now, about we being out here now, and showing that like the different routes, like they know how to get here, and but they haven't done the ride yet. Um, I think it's really just like it just depends on like if one of them wants to ride or not. One of them definitely is like a lot more open to riding than the other one, so it is just what it is. It's just kind of a personal preference. But yeah, it's just that like I think it's just they're just like getting here in no time in 12 minutes versus 30 minutes, so it's okay. Um, but they definitely have the opportunity to. So I'd like to kind of continue to push for that as much as possible. Because it's just it's totally something that's viable. Um, but one thing I also wanted to say too, like there's also like I'm trying to see like what camping is available around too. And there is actually like a I'm not far from Lake Mead, so there's actually a campsite down the hill, and that is technically bikeable. So it's like right on the trail. So I haven't done that yet, but it's doable, which is pretty cool. And that's nice to have access to and important because it's a straight shot down the trail and it's like right off the trail too. So it's but looking to do that probably maybe sometime this year. I think it'd be one of those sub 24 opportunities for sure.
Gotta recruit some neighbors to join you. Maybe do a guys' night.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely something that I have to put feelers out for, and find other people that are like, hey man, you want to go like just like go down the hill and meet me there or something like that. So that takes some time for sure to find like people that can just rip and go like that. But it's when you do have those kind of individuals, it's definitely pretty special to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I hope you build those relationships and you get there. I know it's really hard to transplant to a new neighborhood, and I can only imagine how much harder it is being parents of two young children. So
it's a lot of
not
fun.
easy, not easy.
But it's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. It's the challenges. Again, it's like almost like that type 2 fun. It's like sometimes it can be very grueling, but the rewards themselves definitely make it that much better and worthwhile. So worth going through those efforts. So
For sure.
yeah.
Well, Fed, I want to say thanks for coming on the podcast. I know time is
Thanks for
scarce.
having me.
So.
No, but thanks for having me. I really appreciate you thinking of me, and always happy to chat with you. But yeah,
Right on. Thanks.
appreciate it.